So let's just talk about the offseason. I've spent so much time talking about the draft. I think we're both in agreement that they're going to go quarterback at 2. They're going to trade Darnold. Where they're going to trade Darnold, I can't say definitively where. I look at Denver and Carolina as 2 options to potentially get back, let's say, a second round pick and maybe a 5th round pick or some sort of, second rounder and then a conditional pick that maybe could be, a number 4 or 4th round or 5th round, whatever it is. I think we're in agreement. Sam's gone. But the overall offseason, Carl Lawson, I love the signing. Corey Davis, I love the signing. But you talked about the cornerbacks. Why hasn't Joe Douglas signed any corners when there's still plenty of good guys available? So maybe he's waiting to try and get the best price possible. That's still, is certainly a factor in all this. But the Jets obviously have a glaring need at corner. I get it. They have a lot of draft picks, but it is tough for you to try and fill all your needs by relying on the draft. There's a lot of risk involved there. I don't know if I love that as a strategy for the Jets.
Yeah, so from stuff I've had with guests on the podcast, Steve Weiss talked about this the other day that he didn't think the Jets were ever going to be that big into the cornerback market. There was some talk about William Jackson potentially them being involved there. But other than that, defensive line and being able to get pressure on the quarterback is so much more important to solid in terms of if you can win your one-on-one matchup and get pressure without blitzing. He finds that to be a way, from everything I know, of kind of protect those guys. So they've got to probably find or add over the next, couple of months. They need a slot corner. They need Brian Poole maybe. I thought Quan Williams was a guy they'd be interested in. He's a solid favorite in San Francisco. They need a slot corner. They need probably 2 more bodies at the corner position, at least 1 starting level guy, and then another guy as depth because, we've seen over the the Jets for some reason feel like they have everyone gets hurt every year, and it's always at the worst position. So, yeah, definitely – as the offseason as a whole, I like a lot of what they've done. I'm not blown away by everything. I think they've added depth, which is huge. We saw last year, one guy gets hurt, it's a dumpster fire. The receiver position specifically, you look at somebody like, Keelan Cole, you look at Corey Davis, now Mims and Crowder, and then you get to those guys that, the Lawrence Cagers of the world and things like that. Those guys shouldn't be the first person, Vincent Smith, the Smith brothers, and X, Y, and Z. But you look at Denver, the Indy game, San Francisco was like Rashad Perryman got hurt and Crowder pulled his hamstring, and now it's Chris Hogan, Lawrence Cager, and Vincent Smith. And it's like, yeah, this is why we, for the longest time, we're like, what do you want Sam to do? These guys shouldn't be on an NFL roster at some level, not being disrespectful. But yeah, the offseason has been good. I like LaMarcus Joyner at safety. I think as a safety, he's really good at corner. Did not grade out well at all, but as a safety, if they can do that, look, CJ Mosley's going to be huge. And I think whoever they draft at quarterback and guard is like going to be the key, because if you can play solid defense with that Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner type middle linebacker that can allow you to be in different personnel and get creative and drop into coverage, then also if we're getting 2018 CJ Mosley, this defense looks totally different. Now
if they're getting, the first 3 quarters against the Bills in 2019, CJ Mosley.
The Jets might win 12 games because one of the most impressive performances I've seen since 2009 Revis. But Mosley's a key. Whoever they get to play guard, because you cannot GVR and Alex Lewis cannot be your starting guards, week 1. You're going to get whoever it is playing a quarterback killed, So receiver, I think, is a good group. I still think I'd like to see them add like another burner, an Elijah Moore type in the draft potentially, or, I love USC, but an Amon-Ra St. Brown potentially to work, give depth at slot and do a little bit of everything. Running back, I don't want to use a high pick on a running back as much as Najee Harris at TN. These guys are really impressive to watch. Maybe a Javonte, and if he falls to round 3, which I doubt he will. There's a lot of holes, but they've done a good job. I think they've built a lot of depth, which they've not had in a long time. Lawson should be awesome. Corey Davis. Hopefully Corey Davis, if he can be a 1,000-yard guy, he doesn't need to be 1,500 yards and a number 1. He just needs to be able to be productive. And if Mims develops the way we want, and all these fans, would like to see, now you've got Mims and Davis, who are both could be 1Bs, 2 like really good 2s, and all of a sudden now you're building a core group that's nice. But like I said, guard and corner, I'm not surprised they didn't pay a lot of money for a corner, like I said, but the fact that they've done nothing at corner is also confusing. Other than Justin Hardy, no disrespect, but he's a special teams guy. He's not going to play corner at all this year.
Certainly a lot of holes still to fill there. You trust Douglas's process that he's reading the market. Yeah, I saw someone wrote in on YouTube here. Sean Bennett writes it. Joe Douglas is a flea market shopper. So, it's fair to say that right now, Sean. We'll see what the Jets end up doing. But in fairness to Joe, they did spend big money on Davis. They did spend big money on the edge rusher, our good buddy Carl. So we'll see what he could do. I hope that finally ends the Jets haven't had an edge rusher since John Abraham. And it's true, they haven't had an elite edge rusher since, but hopefully Lawson could be that guy, on this defense. And playing opposite Quinton Williams, I mean, the Jets defense could actually be, assuming Salah's the right guy coaching them up as we all expect him to be, being the defensive guru he was all those years with San Fran. The Jets defense, if they could just find competent play from cornerbacks in the secondary and CJ Mosley comes back, it actually could be a sneaky good unit. Like the Jets defense could actually be, probably a top 10 unit if they're able to just, fill certain needs, as we were kind of just alluding to there, Will.
Yeah, I just don't. I think at the end of the day, their biggest issue has been they don't score points, right? And I mean, I'm being seriously, even
it's true.
Even in 2019, they're winning games 24. Excluding a few different games, the Cowboys game was awesome. It's one of Sam's best games ever. It was great as a fan beating the Cowboys X, Y, and Z, but they still won that game. They scored 3 touchdowns in the first half, and it's dead. And I know that's a lot of Gase. It's a lot of Gase and all these, whatever. Even though in 2009, 2010, the last great offensive Jets team that comes to mind, whereas the offense more than the defense was probably 98. So when it's Allen or Fitzpatrick in 2015, but they got to score points because even if the defense plays well and they don't turn the ball over at the end of the day, that'll help their defense quite a bit. But again, Mosley, Quinnen taking a step. If Carl Lawson gets after the passer, I mean, he's 4th in the NFL in pressures last year, a ton of hits. Just bad defensive line, sacks didn't accumulate. But I'd like to see what he's going to do in that 4-3 system. I'd like to see them add another edge potentially opposite him, depending upon what they like. But at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Edge, we'll see at 23 maybe, depending upon who falls and who's there. It's either probably got to be corner if J.C. Horn's there, which I don't know if he'll fall at this point.
I saw him going in the top 10 in a couple
months.
Crazy.
That pro day was special. Maybe Caleb Farley falls to you, or Gregory Newsome, who people, a TOJ favorite with his time at Northwestern. So Greg Newsome, J.C. Horn maybe, and then Elijah Vera Tucker if he's there, as a guard tackle, type. And then, if you want an edge and there's an edge there, maybe you go for it. But we'll see what happens. It's all going to be reading the board at 23, and whether Douglas likes what's there, maybe he trades up or stays put, or if he doesn't, he might, trade back to early second round and accumulate more picks for the coming years.
And put yourself in position with a rookie quarterback who you're not paying any money to. You maintain your flexibility into the next offseason where you find out kind of what you have with Wilson, what they need to do, to add on to this roster. Everyone talks about the Jets. It's oh, well, you got to stick with Sam because they're not going to win this year anyway. And I think that actually is more of a reason why you move off of Sam. If Sam Darnold's not capable of, putting you in playoff contention in year 4, what are we doing here? And I get it. He hasn't had anything around him. I understand all that. But I keep going back to the fact, if you're going to rebuild, you're better off rebuilding when you're not paying your quarterback anything and you're letting the GM get the quarterback he wants. And from a Joe Douglas standpoint, I meant to make this point earlier, Will. If the Jets stick with Sam Darnold's no longer Mike McCagnon's quarterback. He's Joe Douglas's guy because Douglas is choosing Sam over Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, whoever. If he moves off of Sam, he's getting his guy. He got his head coach this offseason. Now I just think all signs to him, going with quarterback with Zach Wilson and then use the picks to help Zach Wilson and do everything they didn't do for Sam with Zach Wilson if he's indeed the guy. Chipper Howe writes in here. We'll start to get some of the questions here as we talk Jets and NFL offseason, of course. Chip writes in guard or quarterback at 23 and then the other at 34. If the Jets did that, Will, would you be fine with that strategy? Because that to me would be a no-brainer for Joe Douglas if they went that route.
Yeah. Unless there's something that crazy that happens on the board. Like I said, they need a starting corner opposite Bryce Hall. It's really risky probably to run out Bryce Hall and a rookie and expect to be great year 1, but I don't think that's the expectation. I think it's playing meaningful games post-Thanksgiving, which we haven't seen in a long time. So corner and guard, like I said, are probably the 2 biggest positions in need. Again, if someone at 34, if Rashad Bateman's still there at 34, or some of these guys fall, the Jets have somehow addressed guard in the coming weeks, and they feel good about the corners late in the draft, and all of a sudden, like I contradicted myself, but if all of a sudden Douglas falls, I don't think he'll do this, but he falls in love with Najee Harris for whatever reason, right? Then all of a sudden, yeah, it's exciting. I just think the Jets need to address the offensive side of the ball, corner, and either potentially an edge or a will linebacker in the draft. I know it's a lot of different pieces, and they have a lot of holes, but they get 23. Yes, guard and corner are probably the two most likely spots. I would probably say 34 guard is more likely, just based on positional value. You'd probably rather take a guy that plays that close interior in the ball that is not probably that elite athlete. You probably like him at 34, maybe a Creed Humphrey, someone like that, as opposed to 23, unless Elijah Vera Tucker is there. I don't see them probably going guard. I'd probably think they'd go corner at that point, because those are those special athletes that you just won't find round 2, 3, and 4.
Thanks for watching the full YouTube video. If you like what you saw, then please subscribe to my page for more content. Thank you.